Hi there, and welcome to the very second session of the Day 2 Telegraph Food and Drink Festival. So great to see you all here today, and I have the most exciting person for us right now. We are going to learn how to cook perfect pasta from scratch with Angela Hartnett. Angela, we all know Angela, but I'll say anyway that she is the most influential female chef in the country. She's extraordinary and wonderful, and she's an MBE as well. 2007 for services to the restaurant industry. Hurrah! And she's got her own restaurant, Murano, and also a group of other restaurants called Cafe Murano, which are kind of slightly more relaxed vibe than Murano, but not that Murano's stiff at all. But you know, just a little more cash, I guess. So
how
fantastic. I'm fine, thank you, Angela. It's lovely to see you. Now, Angela, what are you cooking for us today?
So what we're going to do, and I've done a little bit of prep, not too much ahead. We are going to do everything. If you can see every stage from scratch.
Because some of you are going to be cooking along. So if you want to cook along,
exactly.
It's coming.
So what are we going to do is these lovely Cavolo Nero tortelli, which is a sort of a variation of the spinach ricotta one, which is very much from the region my grandparents came from, which is Emilia-Romagna, so Parma, Bologna, Emilia, and all those areas. If you go to any restaurant, they've all got their variations of spinach and ricotta, but I like to mix it up. And instead of spinach, I'm using beautiful Cavolo Nero that's perfectly in season, and I've got some already blanched off, and then this one will blanch. And then in this little pan here, I've got some garlic and olive oil with a touch of chili. So I've gone against all my grandmother's traditions by adding garlic in, by adding chili in, and changing the spinach to Cavolo Nero. But that's what we're going to do. So what I would start off in the recipe, most of you will have started off making the pasta ball. But I'm just going to finish this so it will cool down by the time we come to roll the pasta. Okay. So what I've got in here is my Cavolo Nero that's already been cooked, which you can see. That's already been blanched off in salted boiling water. And I'm just going to add that into my chili and garlic pan there.
So did you chop that garlic, just or was that crushed?
Yes, just chop very lightly, Xanthe, with a touch of what we call, and sometimes these are very hard to get hold of in this country, but if you can get hold of them, they're worth it. Are these lovely dry pepperoncino. Can you see that like that? Yeah, there you go.
Gorgeous.
That's the way. And these are amazing. They add these lovely little, great in a little bit of tomato sauce, fantastic in a little bit of, anything like crab linguine, and really good with a little bit of spinach. So you can see there, that's just cooking there. And I'm going to add the other bit here. So just for a bit of speed, drain that straight into there. And because we are cooking live, rather than throw this blanching water out, I'm going to use the same water to cook my pasta in later.
Just got a quick question here. Have you removed the stalks from your Cavolo Nero?
Yes, I've removed the stalks. So what you would have, just to show you an example, you have your Cavolo piece here, and what you do is you literally take that like that, and you're left with the stalk and this. So compost your stalk and then blanch your leaves like that. If they're really tender like this, you just cook those bits, but the really big ones, just get rid of this bit here, okay? So, right, this now is beautifully cooked. We're going to add a little bit of salt to it, and then we'll allow that to cool down very quickly while we cook our pasta. So
actually, I'm trying to cook on, but I'm actually in self-isolation here, and I couldn't get Cavolo Nero, so I'm going to use some cabbage. Will that be all right? Some Savoy cabbage.
Yes, of course. And also, the thing is as well, and I think you've made a really good point there, Zach, is that you should be able to adapt everything. The whole point is that it shouldn't have to be. I think recipes are very important. I think it's good to know what recipes are and to follow recipes, but I also think you can adapt them. Oh, I've wobbled a bit there, that's it. You can adapt your recipes, and like you say, you can use spinach, you can use Swiss chard, lots of different things. So we've got it there. We're going to allow that to cool down while we make the pasta, okay, before we finish our mix. So I'm just going to put that there, spread that out, and that will cool down. Right, so pasta, guys and girls, which is the biggie. So what we have in here, 300 grams of 00 pasta flour.
So what is 00 anyway?
I'm going to crack. So 00 flour is basically drum wheat flour, which is a type of wheat, mainly grown in the south, southern Italy. It's got quite a good gluten content. And what it does is, with this flour, you know, it doesn't go too firm when you cook it. So in a sense, you know, you can mold it very well into various shapes, you know, and you have all the different pasta shapes. And that's what works it. And it means basically 00 twice sieved, or 10 once sieved. So it's nice and fine. You know, if you sometimes feel it's quite a nice.
And it doesn't go too hard when you cook it. So.
Well, in a sense, what it is when I mean hard when you cook it, it holds its shape. So, you know, you get all the different shapes of the pasta with the wheat. There's something to the protein in it allows you to form those different shapes, and it holds in the cooking. So that helps with all the different types of pasta. But for me, I think the best thing I like about the 00 is that when you can make this ahead, because you know sometimes you make pastry and it goes a bit black. You know, with the 00, because of its protein content, it always seems to keep that lovely yellow colour. Doesn't go black the next day in the fridge. So you can make your sort of pasta ahead, which I think is very helpful. Right, so I've whisked my 3 eggs together here. I'm going to put a tiny little pinch of salt into the flour. And then into my bowl, I think I'm going to just tilt it down slightly so you can see.
I love it.
I'm going to add about 2.
I was just going to say, that looks like sacks of salt. Is that good old sacks of salt there? Excellent. Yeah. No sacks of salt then.
So I'm going to... Exactly. Oh no, forget that. So I've added about 2/3 of my egg into there. And with a spoon, I'm just gradually start to bring, you can see like so, the flour mixed with the eggs. Okay? And the great thing about when you're making pasta, you know, if you've never made it before, you really can experiment a bit, because it is only eggs and flour. You don't want to waste stuff, but it's not like you're cooking a big expensive piece of meat if you get that wrong. You know, you can trial and error. And if you don't want to use eggs, you can use water just to sort of understand the consistency. So the reason I sort of put half my eggs in, or I say 2/3, is because sometimes, you know, your hands feel a bit warmer. You know, some of the eggs might be slightly larger. So I think it's always better to add a little bit more rather than have too much. And then I'm going to add my last little bit in there, and then just bring it all together. I'm trying to hold it so you can see it.
That's great.
And knead it. It's a little workout for Sunday morning.
You've got Moira asking you on your feelings of reheating yesterday's pasta. Is that acceptable?
Say that again.
I got Moira just asking if you would ever reheat yesterday's pasta. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, in the sense of like you made some lasagna or something. Yeah, of course. And yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And if you absolutely want the truth, Moira, if there's a little bit of penne with a tomato sauce that's left over, I'd put it in the fridge and eat it the next day. Shouldn't waste food. I've no shame in that respect. Right, so you can see it's sort of come away from the bowl. I'm going to put it onto the surface now and give it a nice little knead.
Oh, we've got a question from Elena. Very good question. What other flour can we use instead of 00? Could you use, I don't know, bread flour or regular plain flour? Or
you can use plain flour. Back in the day when I hate to say I'm the other side of a half century.
You and me both, Angela. You and me both.
When I used to make it with my grandmother, which was probably, you know, in the early mid-70s as a child, they didn't have 00 flour. You know, you bought your olive oil from the chemist. I mean, there was one store in London, Camisa and Co, that would sell Parmesan. So we always use, my grandmother used bread flour. She'd either use bread flour or plain flour. And, you know, if for some reason we didn't have all the eggs, she'd use a little bit of milk, and she might even put a little bit of water in as well. So they were very much of that generation that you adapted, and you know, it was all about this consistency rather than worrying too much about the flour. So don't feel if you haven't got it, you suddenly have to, you know, try and, you know, drive around everywhere to find it. I mean, you can get it in most supermarkets now and most delis, but if not, just use a good plain flour. A nice strong plain flour or a bread flour is equally as good.
Could you use anything gluten-free? Sarah's
Okay.
asking if you could use any gluten-free flour.
You can do certain gluten-free flours. You sometimes have to put what they call this like xanthe gum, I think it is, to make it hold together. But there's a great dish called pizzoccheri, where you use buckwheat flour. And I think I'm right in saying is buckwheat is like a gluten-free flour. And the difference is what it does, it doesn't hold together very well. Sorry, I'm going to tip myself up. I feel I'm talking to my hands. It doesn't hold together, but the dish is mixed with beautiful Savoy cabbage, fontina cheese, and it sits in a dish, so it doesn't need to hold together as a like tagliatelle. So that's a really great alternative. And there are, if you can't make it or can't get the right gluten-free flour to make it, some wonderful gluten-free pasta, you know, out there on the market as well. But I think, yeah, buckwheat, and then you can use gluten-free flour, and you put a bit of this xanthe gum, and it holds it together. Right, so a little tip I have. How are you going, Xanthia? It's all looking good.
Yeah, mine's a little dry actually. I think
Right.
maybe they're quite big enough. Do you think I could add a drop of water to this?
Add a bit more egg.
Or more egg?
Yes, definitely. You know, you've got to, it's got to feel sort of softish. A bit, if you take it in your hand now and you squeeze it, a bit like Play-Doh, you know. And also when you cut into it, you want to cut in like so, and you can see that it's all mixed in, that there's no flour,
A bit more egg.
and that it's nice and even inside. Okay.
Fantastic. Could you freeze?
Right.
Well, we've got a question now. Can you freeze pasta?
Yes, yes. Well,
Could
you
I
can
freeze
freeze it
this
in a ball like this.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Can I
Yes.
freeze the
You
dough?
could freeze half. You could. Yes, yeah, definitely. Freeze the dough. And the other thing is, when we come to make the tortelli, I'll show you how we freeze them as well. Because we always make these for sort of Christmas time and Easter time. I'm just going to move me forward slightly. Oh no, it's probably a bit too forward. Oh, that's better. I think then you'll be able to see onto the board. Actually, sorry, moving you back. I think that's the other way. That's better. You make them all and you just freeze them whole in the freezer and then bag them up and then cook them from frozen afterwards. Right, so we're going to let that rest. Wrap it up in a little bit of parchment paper. And you can whack it in the fridge. Just while we make our filling.
Could you,
Okay.
if you want to, could I knead it in a machine with a dough hook? That's another question.
Sorry, Xanthia.
Another question coming through. Could you knead this with a dough hook? Could you do it in the machine?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you don't want to make it by hand, of course, yeah. You can use it with a dough hook, or even you can use it with, you know, if you do it in a robo coupe, you can do it with the blade. You know, when we make it at work, you know, we're making, some of the guys, I say we, the guys are making about 5 kilos a day. So they make them in the big machines, yeah. So I just think if you've never made pasta before, I think it's good to get that feel in your hands. Then once you understand it and you understand the consistency and you're used to it, then I think by all means, time consuming, you know, if you want to, just do it in the robos, etc. Right, so. How are we getting on top?
I'm just wrapping mine up in my beeswax wrap.
Right. Well done, well done. And then your next job after that is to get chilled cavolo, and then we're just going to chop it through lightly. Again, I'm chopping this by hand, partly because I like the consistency, but also I like the fact that, you know, we're doing it live, so we don't want to have machines going on the whole time. So it's just easy to chop it through. And you've got all that beautiful garlic, spinach, chili flavour in there. Okay. That's nice. Beautiful. Okay.
So it's meal times, Angela. Are you just keeping clear of the kitchen?
I don't know. He was here a minute ago. Oh, I know where he's gone. He's gone to deliver something to one of our neighbours, and he may well have bypassed the pub en route. So that's where he may be. So once you've chopped through here, just squeeze out any excess water, so it's as dry as you can do it. Not too dry, but dry so that, you know, it holds the ricotta and it holds the parmesan. So just squeeze out any extra and then into the bowl.
So with the two of you in the house,
that's it. No, we just did a lovely walk today. We've tried to get into a very good habit of walking. There's a lovely place called Hampstead Heath in London, and we have a nice dog who's asleep now, but we try and walk on a Sunday for a good 2 hours. So we're up very early doing that. Right. So got your cavolo nero there, nicely squeezed out, all chopped together there with your little bit of garlic and chili. Remember, we've added salt already, but we may add a little bit more pepper. And when we add the parmesan, that's going to be salty as well. So you don't need to go overboard with your salt. Right. So I'm going to add my ricotta in. Now in the recipe you've got, it gives you the correct amounts. But to be honest, if you feel like you want to add a bit more ricotta, add more ricotta. Don't, as long as it holds nicely, don't feel that you can't adapt the recipe. If you don't want to add the chili, you don't need to. If you want to add the garlic, if you don't want to add the garlic, you don't have to. And like I say, you know, add a bit less, or I sort of like half and half with mine. And then we're going to add a nice amount, good grate of parmesan. And remember, the parmesan acts like the cheese, the seasoning, as much as salt.
We've got a question here from Philippa, Angela, which is, who's the cook in your home, you or Neil? Because of course your husband Neil is also a chef in London.
Well, it depends. I suppose, Philippa, it depends what we're cooking. If we're doing pasta, it tends to generally be me if we're making just a simple bowl of pasta or something. If I like cooking at home. I find it very relaxing. I know it probably feels like I'm on a busman's holiday, but I don't mind it. But what I do is get Neil to do big pieces of meat and stuff like that. That I'm not so. I like doing all the garnish, all the veg and stuff. So we tend to try and do it together. But I just hate the mess. I like it nice and organised. So we tend either do a bit together, but if it gets too messy, I just say get out of the kitchen. It's because you forget at work, you have so many surfaces, you have a big fridge, you have everything at work, and at home your kitchens are ours is very much a domestic kitchen, which is what I like about it.
But I've walked through your kitchen, Angela, and you wander around wiping up after your chefs. I've seen that. It's really lovely to see.
I'm going to add a tiny little bit more salt and a little bit of pepper if I had some in there. A little bit of pepper. There you go. You see every pepper mill in the house, and no one's got any pepper. There we go. A bit of pepper. And if you wanted to, another thing that goes really well with this is a little bit of nutmeg, but I'm going to leave it out. If you want to, you can. And I think I'm happy with that mix now. I'll bring it close so you can see it. So it's probably, about just under half and half ricotta, finely fish charred, nice bit of parmesan in there. And obviously give it a taste, make sure it's nicely seasoned.
Oh, we've got someone here saying that instead of the cavolo nero, this is Madeline. She uses nettles from Hampstead Heath. That would be lovely.
Perfect. Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, really nice thing, actually. Who was the last? I think nettles are a great thing, exactly, especially as they're free. So rightly, so correctly said. Right. Now, I'm breaking a little egg into just a jug. So when we come to egg wash it, you'll see when we come to stick the pasta. Again, if you don't have egg, if you've run out, well, that was the last one, use a bit of milk, use water. Water's equally as good. It doesn't have to be. You know, don't feel like, oh God, I've used all my eggs, run out to the shop. No need to. You can use what you've got. Right, now we're going to set up our pasta machine so you can all see how we do it. Right. So I'm going to try and keep that out of the way there so you can all see. So most of you know, you have here a big hole which you clamp it to a surface, but I haven't got the surface to clamp it to, so I'm just going to hold it on my board. Then you have your dial here, and as the pasta gets thinner and thinner, you move the dial in. So the rollers get nearer and nearer, and your pasta gets thinner and thinner. And then obviously your handle here, which you come to roll.
If you don't have a machine, Angela, could you work out by hand?
Yes, if you didn't, you could definitely do it by hand. That's not a problem at all. It would take you a bit longer, but obviously I don't see it being a problem at all if you needed to. Right, now I made one a bit earlier, so we rested it, but I think your pasta will be just as fine. In fact, I'm going to use the one I've made with you guys rather than the earlier one.
So what sort of...
And any...
We've got a question actually about what the consistency, how stiff should the dough be?
So I'm trying to think, if you see now, I press my thumb into it, it holds its shape. Right. And it's not sticking to my hands. So I've kneaded it enough that it's not sticking, okay? If now when you pressed it, it was all coming away, it's far too wet. And if it feels like it's cracking, then it's far too dry. But Play-Doh, those of you who remember Play-Doh, is your consistency. I know that sounds weird, but it's sort of a bit like that. So very lightly flour your board. Take your piece of pasta and roll it as thin as you can first time round, because you want this to go through the machine very easily and not force the pasta or force the machine. That's quite important. Okay, so you see, is that here,
half? Is that the full quantity of dough?
Okay. No, that's half of it. Sorry, Xanthia. Yeah, that's half. I've got the other bit here. And what I tend to do is I'm just rolling a small amount now, so I can show you how to make some. And then the rest you can roll later. But always make sure the bit you're not using, you keep it covered up and put it back in the fridge, or don't let it dry out. Okay, so that's gone through the first one. I'm doing that twice, okay, each time. Then move your dial up, and once again, and twice. Okay. Now there's lots of little tips. If you feel at this stage it feels very wet, then what I would do is fold it over, give it another little roll, go back to the widest setting and re-roll. Okay, and then you're sort of double kneading it and adding a bit more flour to it. Okay. If you feel at this stage it's slightly dry, again what I tend to do, so I'd wet my hands and just a tiny little bit of water, very small amount, just to add a bit of moisture to it. So don't feel that, oh, it's not working, you can't redo it. If it sort of starts to crumble because it's too dry, just roll it back together and add more water or egg. So we keep going, roll it through twice on each setting, and take your time. Don't feel, I think sometimes when I've taught this before, you can see obviously it's getting thinner and thinner. people feel that you can't stop the machine. You know, if it goes a bit angled or it gets caught, just stop it, cut that bit off and continue. But I think sometimes people feel, oh, I've got to just keep rolling, and you're just getting worse. So you can see that's getting longer and longer. Sorry, it's my kitchen's the same colour as the pasta. And I'm going to take it to the final setting now. And I'm going to go twice through there. And make sure at this one you really do sort of try and gently guide it through so it doesn't start to catch or concertina, which it can do. And I think you can see, if you can see there, I'm going to show you. You see how it's sort of slightly going in at the edge? That's what I mean, you know, just feel that you can stop, you know, just move the pasta and then it goes through. Okay. And there you see, look, I've got a little hole there. So all I'm going to do is cut round that, not worry about that, and I'll use that later. Okay. And I'm going to go one more time. Also, because it is getting quite wide, the pasta, what I'm going to do is just trim the ends. And again, all these trimmings you can use. Don't ever throw them away. What I tend to do is put them in again, a bit of parchment paper or an old plastic bag and in the fridge, and then let them sort of get their moisture back and then reuse them. Okay. All right, this one's caught now a little bit. So that one we're going to reuse. Right, let's go with this one. So that's it.
Feels like this is a bit of a two-person job. I could do with somebody here to hold one.
Yeah, it's always good if you've got someone to hold the machine, that's for sure. Right, so how are we doing, everyone? Have we got sort of this amount so we can get some, show you how to do this? There. Right. Okay. And like I said, all the trimming bits, what I would do is put them all in a fridge, in a reusable plastic bag, and then they get moisture back and then I use them again. I don't waste them at all. So all these bits can go in a fridge, not to be wasted. Okay. Right. So I'm going to move this a little bit nearer. I think I'm going to roll one more bit, Xanthia.
Okay.
So I've got 2 bits to show you. Just then it feels that there's enough. We're still okay for
So
time.
I've done 2 bits. I've done half of it, and I've got 2 bits about 45 seconds long.
Yeah, so yeah. So I'm going to roll another little bit so I've got enough to demonstrate. Otherwise I feel, yeah, that's not enough. Because my bit, you see, got a bit stuck.
So I haven't done my last one.
I said one. Okay. And you're right, you know, if you're able to sort of stick your machine to the surface, that's good. If not, it is always good that someone can sort of help you hold it onto the board.
So go right down to
It makes a lot of big difference. Sorry, I missed that.
So you go right down to the finished setting. So I've got 2 pieces, about 90 centimetres long, like nearly a metre long each. Wow.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Is it looking
Yeah,
good?
no, it's looking great. Try not to get it wrinkled.
There you see.
There you go.
What you need to do, you can tidy the bits up, and then when you tidy it up, like I said, you can trim bits up, and then those bits you can reuse. Okay, right, so that's it, which is what we've got. So there should be absolutely 0 waste is the ideal
Quite fancy
when you come to make.
But if you were just kind of coming back from the pub, what's the quickest pasta sauce you make?
Oh, I think it's the chef's favourite, puttanesca. So it's basically pasta, everything's in your cupboard, it's all dried, you don't have to have anything fresh bar the cheese, and it's a tin of tomato sauce, with some onions and garlic, ideally, if you've got those. Chop some onions and garlic, finely fry those off till they're nice and soft. Add a tin of tomatoes. Add some of your dried chilies, anchovies, and olives, and that's the perfect sauce. And then finish using it with spaghetti and with a lovely bit of parmesan at the end. Right, so how are we looking, girls and boys? Have we got this here? We can see all our pasta. So I'm going to tilt you down, just so you can see how I'm going to make this pasta now. So take a bit of your filling and just on the nearest edge of the pasta to you, start to do a little ball with a thumb difference in between.
Do I have
so.
to trim off the sort of raggedy edge, or does that matter?
No, because we'll trim that when we seal it, Xanthe. You know, yeah, we can trim that. And like I said, all those trimming pieces we can we'll reuse. We basically put them back in the fridge, let them go softer, re-roll them together, and then I tend to make tagliatelle out of them. And then they're perfect. So there's no waste. So I'm going to do the two here, so you can see these two, and then show you. So yeah, you can make them. Maybe I'm going a little bit big.
What do you think of the ready-made fresh pasta you get in the shops? I've got a question there. The question: what do you think of the ready-made fresh pasta? If you're feeling it's a bit of a fact.
I think ready-made stuff from you know, a little shop in Soho like Camisa or Layla's is fantastic. I do. I think that's great. I'm not keen necessarily on supermarket ready-made stuff. I think you can make it yourself, but that's probably, you know, just a personal thing. But there's certainly nothing wrong with dried pasta. I think some dishes are actually better with dried pasta. I think something like a spaghetti alla vongole or linguine alla vongole is far better with linguine, with dried linguine, than with fresh.
Question: what spoon are you using to dot the mixture in? Is that an ordinary dessert spoon?
Yeah, I think that is what I had was a teaspoon about this size. So if you that's a teaspoon. Okay. So what we're going to do now, guys and girls, is just egg wash with our egg, just gently round our balls of ricotta.
How close is your balls to the edge?
So it's very near. I'm going to slightly bring the camera in so there you can see. So that should help you. So it's very near the edge, and they're about a thumb distance, because what we're going to do now is do this. Okay, that's the key. Alrighty, so I'm just going to bring that a bit lower down so you can see there. That's probably better, isn't it? There you go.
With the egg wash.
So I put egg wash all around here. So just not on this end bit, because we'll probably cut that bit off, but basically we'll just round each piece. And then what we're going to do is fold it over. Don't stick it yet, just fold it.
From the same edge where the balls are, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take the balls, fold them away from you, and then just with your hand, you know, so you've got a little bit of an edge. You're going to stick those down and then basically get the air out. That's the key now. Your air out like so. Okay? Because then when we come to cut them, all the air is out.
What's the problem with the air?
Okay. Well, I think what it does, if you've kneaded your pastry, you should be okay. It's only really a problem if you have you haven't kneaded your pastry enough, and then the air pockets expand in the cooking, and then they'll explode. But as long as you've got boiling water, so what we do is we take, if you haven't got a pasta wheel like I have, just use a knife, cut along the seal, so you're basically sealing the pasta here, right next to the edge. That's it. Oh, my cutter's not cutting. That's rather useless. Let's try another one. Okay, that's better. And then cut either side of your tortelli. And don't be afraid to have a little bit of pasta. Sometimes we Brits, we tend to make it all about the filling, but actually you need to have a bit of the pasta. So you've got them finished like so. I'm going to cut that little bit there. And then you've got a nice bit of the charred, cavolo. Make sure it's sealed.
So I've got some air in mine, Angela. Can I, does it matter?
Right. So you see my one's got a little bit of air. Just literally take it to a little point and squeeze it out. It will be fine. As long as it's nicely sealed, you'll still be okay. I've made every mistake possible in my years of training with pasta, so you'll be fine. So this one here now, we'll do it one more time.
Oh, we got
so you can see it very near.
Jessica's just asking if a pizza cutting wheel would work instead of the paper one.
Yeah, of course. Pizza cutter, just normal knife, as long as it's sharp and it cuts it. So again, you see I've got it nearer like this. We're going to fold it over so it forms a little bit of a ridge. Okay, but before you stick it down totally, just squeeze out like so and squeeze the air out. That's it. See, my grandmother would be shocked at the size of these. Hers were always much smaller. Make mine too big. I remember as a kid, I used to try and eat the filling because I wanted to finish early, but she'd always catch me and then make them just make them smaller. So,
and what, you'd eat the filling as you were making them?
Yeah, just so I could finish, and she'd basically catch me, and just sort of give me a clip round the ear. And then also, if I tried to make them too big, she'd come behind me and take the filling out. So there you go. Yeah, if you haven't got a pizza cutter, is equally as good. Okay, guys. I always say guys because I'm always saying that in the kitchen, but ladies and gents, any dogs or animals that are watching, there we go. Look, I've got a little bit of air there, and you just squeeze it towards the edge to squeeze it out. I'm just going to turn that water on.
So guys means women and men in your kitchen, yeah,
exactly, everyone. So I think that's a good amount. I'm just conscious of time. I've got my water boiling, so I'm going to show you a finished dish. But a little trick for you. Like I said, if you wanted to, you can leave these out and let them dry and just turn them during the day and they'll be perfectly fine and cook them tonight. If you didn't want to cook them and you wanted to freeze them, put a little bit of flour on a tray, put them on the tray, not sticking next to one another, or semolina flour I use as well if you haven't got flour available, or if flour's fine if you don't. Put them on the tray like this and then put them in the freezer exactly like this. Don't worry about covering them up until they're solid. Then when they're solid, just put them in a plastic bag, a reusable plastic bag, and seal it. And then the key is then they'll stay in the freezer for up to 2 to 3 months, and then you cook them from frozen. So, you've got you've got a bit of mix, you've got a bit of pasta. So, if you don't want to eat them all today, you can do some, freeze them and you've got them next week whenever you feel.
And how many of these per person do you think you should be making?
Depends what family you've got. My family, they always sound too tight. I never make enough. But I think you easily want, listen, in the restaurant, we probably do about 7, 8 pieces as a starter, about 12, 14 as a main. If, it's a starter and you want to eat something else, you don't want to have too much pasta, but it's nice, if you've gone to that effort, it's nice to sort of show off a little bit. Right, so shall we show you a finished dish then? That'll be a good thing. Right, so like I said, salted boiling water is the key.
Salty? How much
and it needs to be. You've got to be able to taste the salt, and I think it needs a bit more. Yeah, I mean, I tend not to put too much salt into my pasta. I really put a tiny pinch, and especially if I make a pasta that's all egg yolks, I don't put any salt in because it tends to cook the egg yolks. So that's why you need to season your water up. And I remember one time I was cooking something, I don't know what it's for, it was for some charity thing, and I'd forgotten to put enough in the water, and it was Anthony, the late Anthony Carluccio, that came up to me and said, "Do you want no salad?" He knew straight away that I hadn't put enough in the water.
Busted, Angela. Busted.
Right, so exactly, so they're literally going straight into this water, and like I said, I'm using the water that I had before. You can see that's nice and boiling and bubbling. You don't want it at, you know, at a low simmer, you want it nice and bubbling. And I've heated my pan here where I'm going to add my butter. So I'm just going to get hold of that. I hope everyone's now got the wine open ready for lunch. So a nice bit of butter in there. These go into that water. Lid on, and they'll come up. Righty.
Oh, I've got a bit of a breakage, Angela. Can I patch it up with a little dough?
Yeah, you patch it up, put a little bit of egg wash on it, or patch it up. And to be honest, if it, you know, if it breaks in the water, you know, as long as you've got enough that the rest are okay, you'll be fine. So you can, I'm trying to move that handle. Yeah, I think that's better. Now you can see that's nicely like that. I'm going to put a nice bit of pepper in there. And get another little bit of butter. Yeah, you know the Italians, they like a bit of butter with the cooking.
Right. Here's one of mine with a little patch on. Can you see?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm just going to put that on there because then you'll see more. And that, like I said, this is very domestic. So that's fine. They're about to come up now. And you want it to the point it starts to what they call burn rosette. Just a little colour, not too much.
When it's all nutty smelling.
Exactly. You know, you can add a little, tiny little bit of salt, but very little, because remember, you're going to add, hopefully, parmesan as well. So you see now, I'll just show you in. They're coming up nice boiling there, and then literally done. They're going to take a matter of seconds, you know, come up to the surface, cook them for about a minute, and there. So
just asking, do you put the lid on for cooking pasta?
I did with this one because the first heat I had on was a bit, it's a rubbish burner. So as you see, I've swapped them. But normally you shouldn't need to. But if you put a lot, not a lot in, but you've put enough in, just get the water back up because you don't want it sitting. Because obviously as soon as you've added pasta into it, the water stops boiling and you want it to come up. So I basically put it on, bring it back up and then take the lid off again. So now, here, I've just tossed in the nice butter. And then we're going to turn that off. And then if they've held, you're laughing. And to be honest, I got caught once, you see. Don't all think that I'm brilliant. I was one time cooking in this very house, Easter for all the family, made these with spinach and ricotta. And in my impatience, basically loaded it too much with the water and they all stuck. So as my mum says, trying to rush it, trying to be too clever. And it was a disaster.
Do your family tell you what when you're cooking? Do they make...
Oh my God. They are the worst. There's none of this all wonderful. It's all like, well, you know what? You know, and the best was, I mean, I always tell this to embarrass my cousin, Emma. She's married my cousin into the family and she made these amazing Florentines one Christmas. One, it was annoying. She made everyone Christmas presents. I mean, who has that time? But she did. And then everyone said they were the most ones, and everyone's going, oh, look at these Florentines, Angela, aren't they delicious? They're incredible, you know. And it's when she sees people like Hit, and she says, Mark, you need to tell Angela how to make panna cotta. Yours is delicious. Yes, so my mum is classic. Right, then finish with the last little bit of Parmesan on there. And there you have your lovely hard ricotta tortelli, little bit of pepper and butter.
Beautiful. And what wine are you getting with that, Angela? What wine are you going to have with that?
Oh, God. Oh, that's a nice crisp white, actually. Something nice and cold, dry in the fridge. Well, I probably haven't got anything in the fridge, but I'll try and find something. Otherwise, a glass of red if we have to open something. But they're smelling good, guys. How are yours looking, Xanthe?
Well, I'm just going to show you. You will see that there is a little patching going on. I think my dough was very fine, and also I patched them. But there we go.
I think they're looking great. They're looking fantastic.
Oh, my keyboard. But yeah, no, so that's my lunch sorted too. Marvellous. Fantastic. Good. Angela, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a great fun. I really enjoyed it. And we need to get them to do this again. I think
it was really fun, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Zach. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.